Conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. Alyssa Leonard is out of town tonight for a long-planned family event, so I'll be filling in for her chairing tonight's meeting. It's a relatively short agenda, but still a couple of important things to vote on and discuss. With that, if we could move to the approval of our previous meeting minutes. Might there be a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of the Board of Managers' regular monthly meeting held on December the 8th, as drafted.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And minutes are approved. And then moving right into business, appeals and special permits. First up this evening is a request for variance A8779. Aurelia.
All right. So case A8779 is a variance request for Mr. and Mrs. Lamond, owners of 5 East Irving Street, to extend an existing pool deck along an existing encroachment, which would encroach 8 feet and 5 inches into the required 10-foot setback. The deck would be located 1 foot and 6 inches from the side west property line for a length of 4 feet and 9 inches. The applicants have applied to refurbish the existing pool decking along with other improvements at the property. The proposed work includes an extension of the existing pool deck along the west side of the rear yard. The property has an existing in-ground pool for which a village building permit for the initial installation was issued in 1966. The application for the existing pool does not include a pool deck. The proposed expanded pool deck would extend the existing western edge of the pool deck further south and be located 1 foot and 6 inches from the west side property line for a length of 4 feet and 9 inches. The extension would increase the area of the non-compliant pool decking on this side west setback by approximately 40 square feet. That's the purple area right down there at the bottom. The overall project, which includes a new pool decking on the right east side of the existing pool and removing some of the existing pool decking and patios on the property, will result in a net decrease of impervious surface area in the rear yard by 26 square feet. The applicants state that the existing pool is already constrained by a small rear lot, and that the pool's location, which is off-centered towards the west side of the rear yard. The shallow end of the entry steps into the pool are located on the west side of the pool, and the access to the pool at the southwest corner of the deck is constrained and creates a pinch point, making this high traffic area a safety concern. The applicants assert that given these existing conditions, there may be no way to ensure compliance with the current setback requirements without remodeling the pool itself. The village consulting civil engineer has reviewed the proposed project in its entirety and determined that the adjustments to the pool decking will meet the requirements in the village buildings code. To date, no letters in support nor opposition of the proposed work have been submitted to the village office.
Okay.
So there's the little 40 square feet about where the little red outline shows where the new deck.
And the rest of the pool line is just as an extension of that. So it doesn't extend any further into the setback than the current pool.
Than the current pool deck.
Than the current deck,
The deck.
correct.
Yeah.
No, fair
Yes.
point. Yeah. Is anyone here to speak on behalf of the variance?
Yeah, that's great. So this is a, oh, sure. My name is Catherine Hanley. I am a landscape designer and agent for the Lamonds. When we looked at this existing pool, we attempted to make it as compliant as possible. And we've taken, because the pool decking is non-compliant on two sides, the north and the west side. So all the non-compliant pool deck on the north side, we have converted to pool decking that is compliant and is located on the east side, as Aurelia said. The west side, because of the location of the pool and how it was sited in the backyard, there's no way to make the pool deck on the west side compliant. And it is just a walkway. It's not a seating area. And we feel like if we're expand that small 40 square feet, it's really just an expansion of that area of the existing 3-foot section of pool deck on the west side. It is a safety concern. There's kids, they have children, they have friends over. It's a very narrow area to transition, and we feel like making that a little bit more generous and gracious would just be a real improvement in the safety of the pool. In addition, I don't know if you have the picture. Do you have the picture that we sent of the Google image of the neighbors? I can pass it around if you'd like to see it, but basically on the west fence line, on the boundary line, on the opposite, so on the other side of that west boundary line, I don't know if you want to.
This picture is north top, north.
Yeah, so.
So to our left.
So the document that's being sent around is a Google image from above showing the Lamond yard next to the neighbor's yard. And right up against that fence for the neighbor is their driveway and large parking area. So we're not creating any kind of, we're not abutting their entertainment space at all. So we feel like it wouldn't be an inconvenience or annoyance to the neighbor to expand that 40 square feet. I don't know if that's helpful.
Yeah.
Okay. So we just feel like this plan in general, a proposed plan, makes the pool deck as compliant as possible while addressing all safety concerns.
When I looked at this, I was, the safety issue of having a really small area there around the pool seemed valid to me. And it also just feels like this is consistent with what would have been approved in 1960 when they put this thing in. And the fact that, you know, most of that is still there makes it difficult to do much with it. So I'm inclined to vote affirmatively on this.
Agreed.
I concur.
I concur.
Are we-
Motion?
I will.
Yeah.
I move to approve with the following. I move to approve the variance request in case A 8779 on the basis of the evidence presented, including the staff report and case synopsis, demonstrates that the applicable requirements for approval of the variance have been met. Staff is directed to draft a decision based on this evidence, including findings of fact and conclusions approving the variance.
Second. Second. Yeah. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the variance is approved.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for coming in. Next order of business is a request for special permit A 8780.
So we're going to divide and conquer this
Yeah.
evening, and I'm going to do the lead-in for this particular case, 8780. Request for a special permit filed by Mr. Kyle Rabe, the owner of 3706 Bradley Lane, to maintain a hedgerow of 12 boxwood installed 2 feet from the public sidewalk in the Bradley Lane public right-of-way in the applicant's front yard. Village code establishes a 3-foot setback from the public sidewalk for this installation of trees, hedges, shrubs, and other growth, recognizing that these improvements will grow as they mature, but can be sufficiently maintained so as not to interfere with the public sidewalk. In October of 2024, village staff observed that shrubs were being planted close to the public sidewalk at this address, with 10 shrubs already in the ground and another 2 pots next to the shrubs that had already been planted. Staff observed what appeared to be a new drain pipe as well that had been installed along the western edge of the property. After returning to the office and confirming from the plat diagram for the property that the work was indeed within the public right-of-way, our permitting and code enforcement coordinator contacted the residents to make them aware that this work required a building permit and license to use the public right-of-way, neither of which had been issued by our office. The residents promptly responded and submitted an application for the improvements, indicating that the boxwood hedge was located 2 feet from the public sidewalk. Village staff replied confirming that the hedge was not in a compliant location and would need to be moved 1 foot farther from the sidewalk to be in compliance with the village code setback requirements. The resident modified and resubmitted the site plan for the work, indicating that the shrubs would be placed at a compliant location, reflecting their intention to bring them into compliance. Issuance of the building permit and license to use the public right-of-way were delayed as staff worked with the applicant to address water runoff concerns related to the drain pipe, which outletted too close to the public sidewalk. On March 28 of 2025, village staff confirmed that the drain pipe had been relocated as required, but not having received any response from the applicant with respect to the boxwood hedge, staff sent multiple follow-up emails requesting that the owner execute the license to use the public right-of-way. On November 11, 2025, the owner responded and advised that he would seek a special permit from the Board of Managers to maintain the boxwood hedge in its current location rather than relocate it pursuant to the filed building permit application and in compliance with the village code. The applicant has indicated that the hedge is intended to provide screening from the adjacent intersection of Bradley Lane and Georgia Street. The applicant advises that he personally planted the shrubs and was not aware of the 3-foot setback at the time of planting. The applicant states that the shrubs have been planted for over a year and are now well established, and that digging them up to move them to a compliant location would require significant effort and expense and may damage or kill the plants and would not seemingly provide a benefit to the public. A report was submitted for the record in this matter from the village's consulting landscape engineer dated January 12, 2026, which was circulated to the board and to the applicant prior to this meeting. Copies are at your places. This report indicates that the shrubs have not yet been fully established. The report further states that pursuant to the publicly available information for this species of boxwood, at full maturity, the shrub should achieve a height and width of 3 feet, which would project into the adjacent public sidewalk. There is no case history for the board's consideration of shrubs, hedges, or other landscaping installed less than 3 feet from the public sidewalk. However, as the written staff report outlines, various other structures such as fences, walls, cheek walls, and piers for which the board has approved special permits for their placement within 3 feet of the public sidewalk. To date, no letters in support nor in opposition to the special permit request have been submitted to the village office.
Is anyone here to speak on behalf of the applicant?
Hi,
We do
yeah, my name
Tracy
is,
Tomlinson on the virtual feed.
yep. Hi, everyone. I'm Kyle Raby's wife, and I live at 3706 Bradley Lane as well. So just in terms of kind of the history of the boxwood, so we had hired Leila Fendrick Landscape Architects to help us kind of rework the front of our house. We bought the home from the Trantis family in 2021, and they had done a renovation, I think in 2010, where they had put in kind of the semicircular driveway that we have outside of our house. And in the first year that we were in the house, I think 4 separate people hit that wall when they were coming in. So it was did not work well for visitors or for us. And so we were working with Leila and her team to kind of redo the front so that it was an actual usable front driveway. It didn't put folks at risk when they were visiting our house. And as part of that, we wanted to add some screening in front of the home. As you may know, our house faces that stop sign right at the end of Georgia. And so we get, a decent amount of traffic that goes through there. And we had our first child, my daughter, about 1.5 years ago, and just wanted more screening up front since her bedroom faces the front to try and maybe cut down on some of the light pollution from cars and things going by. There was some staging that we ended up doing. The as I'm sure many folks on this call are aware, the hardscape that we were doing in the front ended up being much more expensive than we had expected. So we decided to delay the landscaping. As part of that, we had thought that all of the permits were still being sent to the village, and we thought we'd gotten the permits for the landscaping and the hardscaping, but found out after the fact, after we talked to Aurelio and his team, that actually only the hardscape permits had been issued, and that Leela and her team had not issued or not submitted the landscaping permits at the same time. So that's kind of the backstory there, and why, you know, we thought the shrubs went in, thought that they were compliant, thought that they had been permitted, and then just given some kind of personal safety issues that we've been dealing with over the course of the last year. We've been out of town for a long time. So we were out of town most of the summer through the fall, got back in early November, which is when my husband got back in touch and, you know, was working with the Aurelio and team to work on the special permit.
Have any of the neighbors submitted any feedback or input?
No, we have not received anything in writing from any of the neighbors.
I have text messages and emails of them in support, but I didn't ask them to submit anything specifically to the board. But they all said they were willing to.
Just an opening set of thoughts on my part. This is a somewhat difficult case because there is the long-term safety issue that provides a reason for the setback. And the fact that as much as the bushes are out of the way right now, there will come a time when they intrude on the sidewalk. And there are places throughout the village where long-standing hedges and bushes routinely intrude on the sidewalk and force pedestrians, you know, nearly off the sidewalk or into the street, which becomes a safety issue. And those hedges, for the most part, were planted prior to this rule or ordinance being passed in 2013, I think, right?
Or were planted sufficiently back from the public sidewalk, but have grown.
Fair
so
enough.
that they are
Right.
close.
Right. So there is the safety issue and the concern that as these bushes mature, they will begin to intrude on the sidewalk and affect pedestrian traffic. On Bradley, and that's a special concern because it's a heavily trafficked street. And, you know, it's narrow, and there's plenty of streets in the village where you can walk safely in the street, not be that worried about it, though the hedge intruding on the sidewalk is still a nuisance. Here, it's really a much more pronounced safety issue. Additionally, there's a snow removal issue, as I understand it, that on Bradley, there's already a very limited amount of space for the public works crews to actually clear Bradley of snow during snow events. And that is also compounded by having the hedge so close to the sidewalk. There's the actual safety issues that are the rationale for the ordinance, and the fact that I don't believe we've ever made an exception since the passing of the ordinance. We've not made an exception. Worth noting that the village staff does receive complaints on the shrubs that intrude on the sidewalk, and there are enforcement actions taken to require residents to trim their hedges and clear the sidewalk.
Sure.
The second issue, beyond the safety rationale for the ordinance, the second issue is a little bit of the process that the village, having identified this issue almost on the day of the planting, and apparently there was a good collaborative effort to resolve the drain pipe in addition to the bushes initially. That seems to have lapsed. I appreciate your comment, Ms. Tomlinson, that you've had some issues that have kept you and your husband out of town a fair amount. So that might explain some of the delay that has brought us to this point. But that makes, in my mind, a difficult situation. Our goal in the village would be to be proactive to prevent future hedges from overwhelming our sidewalks, as has occurred elsewhere. And probably most of my board members would agree that we want to be accommodating within the bounds of the ordinances and within the bounds of precedent when neighbors have or residents have hardship issues, but at the same time, we need to be consistent in enforcing the ordinances. So it's a somewhat difficult issue balancing these things. But with that being my initial thoughts and kind of looking at some of the issues here, what other comments might the board want to make?
Can I just interject one thing really quickly? So these particular type of boxwood that we planted, as I think you'll see in the note from the village engineer, at full maturity get to 3 feet in spread, and that's after 15 years. So they are extremely slow growing. And as you can see from the photo, they're already about 2 feet wide. So they are going to grow like 6 inches in either direction, and fully understand the safety issues and the concerns. Part of the reason we love living in the village and wanted to be here is for all of the work that you all do, and making sure that it's a lovely place and a safe place to be. So fully understand. But that's just one note I wanted to make about this particular type of boxwood that's planted there.
Thanks. That's helpful. Other comments?
What did our engineer tell us about the risks associated with moving the plants now?
So the analysis from our consulting landscape architect is that there are 2 references in their report in regard to relocating them. They note that the publicly available information about this particular species notes that it generally takes about 18 months to acclimate to a new site. So the shrubs are currently within their initial establishment window for monitoring and additional care and are not yet fully established. They further stated that moving the 12 shrubs that were planted just over 1 year ago would likely cost approximately between $1,200 and $1,500 for labor and remulching. And then that pruning of the boxwood is appropriate in late winter to early spring, so that pruning any dead material / fall frost burns could occur to encourage new growth, along with transplanting in the early spring as being the proposed time frame.
One of the announced rationales for the rule is,
Just bring your mic a little bit closer. I just want to make sure the applicant can
yes,
hear you.
one of the reasons for the 3-foot setback was to permit snow removal.
Yes. So the setback is really premised on a few different things. The principal one being that if you've at least started off with a planting location that's 3 feet from the sidewalk, you're going to give that shrub, hedge, bush the space it needs to grow without interfering into the sidewalk, as Mr. Morsberger noted before. The 2 secondary considerations have to do with our delivery of municipal services. And so Bradley Lane is already a challenge for us because it is the only street in the village other than Brookville Road where the sidewalk directly abuts the street. There is no tree box area or that green strip between the sidewalk and the roadway curb. And so that means that there's no place for us to put snow when we do snow removal operations. There's no place for residents to put their yard debris or yard waste so that we can collect it because there is no tree box area. So we already struggle because there are a lot of other locations, as was cited by the applicant in their application, along Bradley Lane, where either due to the change in topography, hills rising just on the inside of the sidewalk, retaining walls just on the inside of the sidewalk, or existing shrubbery and bushes that has already created pinch points for us for those latter 2 considerations, snow removal and yard waste collection. So ultimately, even at full maturity, these shrubs will likely, based upon the landscape architect's analysis, reach the edge of the sidewalk anyway, but certainly not having that additional room for growth just impedes upon those various different factors.
Do I understand this correctly? We're talking about 2 feet from the sidewalk now, right? Planted.
Correct.
And so if it in fact grows to be 4.5 feet wide at full maturity after 25 years, then that's it. You would have to trim back 6 inches.
Yeah, they're 3 feet at full maturity, not 4.5.
Right, so even at 4.5, that would give you greater opportunity to prune while maintaining the shrubbery's balance without severely cutting it back. Versus a shrub that's already impinging upon that space, you have even less margin to keep it off the
I
sidewalk.
just want to correct what I heard her say is that it's 3 feet wide at full maturity. That's not what I'm reading here. It says 3 foot tall and wide after 15 years, 4.5 feet tall and wide at full maturity after 25 years. So there would come a time, on the one hand, where some intervention might be needed. On the other hand, that intervention would be practical. It would be possible, I would imagine, to cut it back by 6 inches if we need to do that. So I am definitely fully on the fence on this.
At full maturity, you could prune the hedge back to solve the safety issue on the sidewalk.
Mhm.
But for snow removal, if you have a 4.5-foot boxwood 6 inches from the sidewalk, you are not going to have much, if any, space to get rid of snow and leaves.
Correct. So currently what happens with snow removal for those other properties along Bradley Lane where there's insufficient right of way for snow to be banked, they're creating snow banks in the roadway itself, which is eliminating available parking, which is already pretty tight on Bradley Lane. In this particular instance, because the property sits at the intersection, what I imagine Public Works will likely end up doing is actually pushing the snow bank in front of neighboring properties in order to accommodate it in the roadway, so that they can achieve as wide of roadway
This case is also somewhat tough because with the ordinance having been passed in 2013, we've never made an exception to it. I don't know, have we had applications? We have plenty of plantings that are probably compliant with the ordinance, right?
correct.
And we've never had anyone ask for an exception.
But
Really?
there are plenty of fences and other things within that easement along Bradley Lane that are even less movable than a bush.
One of the considerations there, I think, is that appreciating, I get where you're coming from on Bradley. I mean, gee, there's so many folks who predated the ordinance before the setback was imposed on one hand. And then secondly, fences and walls don't mature in the sense that they don't then intrude on the sidewalk or further limit snow removal. But I get where you're coming from, because you could look at that picture of Bradley Lane and say, gosh, there's already plenty of encroachment. With a long view, which can be a frustrating thing, but with a long view, the ordinance was created in 2013. There's never been an exception made to it to date for shrubs or plantings. If the first time an exception is requested, we make that exception. And without a clear indication of special hardship or uniqueness to the lot, I'd be concerned that our long-term ordinances become a little bit diluted or meaningless.
But I
So
do think it is a unique lot on Bradley, given that we're right at that intersection with the 3. I mean, that nobody stops at ever. And so it gives us more screening from what is otherwise a very public facing home in relation to the other homes on Bradley.
And I don't think the request would be to remove the boxwoods. I think the request would just be to move them back a foot so that you'd still have the same screening over time, but without the safety issues raised. And again, we're taking a long-term view here. That ordinance was in 2013. We've respected it perfectly to date. This was a fairly easy case to correct had it been acted on at the time it was first identified. The bushes are still not so mature that they couldn't be moved somewhat back and they wouldn't be damaged in that process. So that long-term view can be very frustrating to a resident who has a very nice looking, front landscaping right now. But as I sit here and thinking, gee, fast forward a few years, there's going to be a different village council, a different set of residents. What frustrations will they be expressing because that ordinance from 2013, eventually fell into disregard? Now that's kind of where I'm coming out on this, but other comments and thoughts as well.
Well, can you opine about what we would have to believe in order to allow this?
One of the problems here is that while there is a hardship, it's self-imposed. And so that's one criteria that is not a criteria. In fact, if they have to be moved back, that's something that.
You pull the microphone, sorry. We've gotten recent reports that it's hard if we're not speaking right into the microphone to hear us. No problem.
It's just one thing to, but part of the hardship here is really, you're not preventing the obstruction being there, just requiring that they move. And that costs money, but that's self-imposed because permit wasn't gotten in the first place. So,
Sorry, I can't hear anything on the phone.
I'm sorry, I have a cold, or I'm getting over one. I will.
I think it's been going around.
I'm leaning into the microphone. I'll try this one more time. One of the things you look at here and making consideration is that you're not preventing the installation of the trucks. That would be a hardship based on what's been presented to you. You just require that they step back. You wouldn't need an exception at all if they were step back. And the cost of moving them is a self-imposed cost because they were installed without a permit. So as a hardship, that's not really cognizable because it's something you do to yourself.
And in the scheme of financial cost of hardships the board considers, this one is a relatively low order of magnitude, just from the village engineer's report.
Now, of course, that is not to say that there may not be a landscaper who would charge far more than
Right.
that,
Yeah.
but certainly based
Right.
upon our consulting landscape architect's analysis, that is about the estimated price for the work.
So Lou, David Winstead here, and Tracy, thank you for engaging on this. I tend to agree with Lou on this one simply because of the nature of Bradley and the fact that the remedy here is not that severe. If these were 2.5-year-old hedges that had been planted and rooted, and they would be, potentially die if they were moved. But Lou, I think you're making some good points here that the $1,000, $1,200 would remedy the situation and would still allow for, in fact, the hedges would be higher theoretically and provide more height buffer in the conforming distance than they do closer to the sidewalk, the way I see the drawing here. So Lou, I think you make some sense on that.
Thanks. Other thoughts, or are we ready to make a motion?
I guess
So-
I would just add, I feel a little awkward imposing the strict rule of law here, but I see why this was adopted. And while it doesn't look like it creates a problem today, the landscaper's report indicates it will create a problem with regard to the public policy rationale for it, at least the secondary ones for snow removal as these trees mature. And that would all be solved if they were just put back a foot, and that's perfectly permissible. So I hate to say no, but I think I would be inclined to vote not to have the special permit issued. So we have a rule that everybody has to follow.
One quick question. If we approve, say with modifications or however it might, will it disrupt the window of trying to change this by early spring? I guess is the question.
So just to be clear, if the shrubs are brought back by 1 foot,
Mhm.
then they would not need a special permit from the board at all. It
Okay.
would be approved
So this doesn't
administratively.
need to go through this. again.
Right,
Got it.
so really, you could either, approve this as planted,
Right.
approve it with modifications, which would be to require them to move it some margin between where they are now and the 3 foot. Or if you deny it, it just is a requirement then that they bring
Okay,
it
so it
back to
wouldn't
the
create an
compliant
additional
location
hardship.
for administrative approval.
Sounds good. Okay.
Okay, but we couldn't do that until the spring. That's what the
Right.
report said, right?
Correct. So if the board proceeds forward in denying the special permit, we would withhold enforcement action to require removal or relocation of the boxwood until that spring timeframe as recommended by the village's consulting landscape architect.
Got it.
Does that
I
need to
mean,
be in the?
I think, yeah, I mean, I think the simplest thing here is just to leave them and require pruning, but obviously defer to the decision of the board.
So if the board does choose to deny the special permit, the question about enforcement, should that be articulated in the decision that the applicants will be granted until spring of 2026 to relocate or remove the boxwood?
That would be appropriate. You would do that anyway,
Mhm.
but to recognize it for the residents to know that.
In the decision would be good. Okay, so that should be stated then by whomever decides to make the motion, if that is indeed the route. I'm not trying to predispose
Right,
your
right.
outcome here, but if that's
Right.
the direction you choose to go in.
And I'll offer that in a prior discussion, I know that there was some consideration of, is it feasible to just require pruning? The problem is that the village staff is fighting that battle with all the other hedges and bushes that are encroaching the sidewalk. And that's part of the reason for the ordinance, was to get ahead of that so that the village isn't in the pruning enforcement business over time. So appreciating that thought, Ms. Tomlinson, but that it has been discussed if that was possible. And I think there was a sense amongst a couple of folks that that might be difficult. But is there a motion or further comment?
Okay, I'll be the bad guy here. Let's see. I move to deny the special permit request to case 8780 on the basis that the evidence presented, including the staff report and case synopsis, demonstrates that the applicable requirements of the special permit have not been met. Staff is directed to draft the decision based on this evidence, including findings of fact and conclusions, denying the special permit. I would also add to that motion that we're noting that no enforcement is going to be taken on this until the spring, when it would be feasible to move the bushes.
All in favor?
So,
Aye.
Aye. That's in favor of denying the application. Yeah. All opposed? The request for a special permit is denied. Thank you for making the case, Lily, and sorry that we're not providing the outcome you might have wanted.
It's fine. I appreciate the time. Thanks, everyone.
Next up, treasurer's report. Gary.
I don't really have anything to add to the written report as per se, but there's something that I want to bring up that's a result of it. The report points out that we are finally getting a draft of the audited financial statements, and they'll be the committee will look at those. And this happened much later than it should have happened, and more later than it has been in the past. And the reason for that, about 3 years ago, the accounting system that we had been using for a long time came to the end of its life and was no longer going to be supported. So we needed to find a new one. And after doing due diligence, we chose the one that we have now. And it turns out that the people were not able to provide all the functionality that they had promised us on this. And we've been going back and forth with them, and it's been quite the mess. The system is doing an adequate job of keeping the books, but the ability to produce the reports that we need for the audit is just, they just can't seem to figure out how to do it. And we think that they figured it out. And Dimitri has just been heroic in his efforts to drag this information out of them and to work with them. And you'd think that once they went through that the first year that it would be solved the second year, but no, it seems like every year they run into the same problems again. So we're going to be looking for a new accounting system. I just wanted to let the board know about that.
I
Thanks.
fear we either need to find a new accounting system or a new finance director, because I do think that Dimitri is at the end of his rope on this one.
And our finance director is far more critical to the operation than
Absolutely.
any software. we
Yeah,
recommend.
indeed.
Thanks for that, Gary. Next up, matters for board discussion, consideration, and possible action. On the agenda is the possibility of the village participating as a co-sponsor in one or possibly two candidate forums leading up to the county council and possibly county executive races this spring. The primary itself is on June 23rd, and it will be a lively set of races. At the county executive level, Mark Elrich, current county executive, is term limited. So he is now running for one of the at-large council seats. There are 3 current council members who have thrown their hat in the ring, including Andrew Friedson, our first district council representative, Will Jawando, one of the at-large council members, and Evan Glass, also at large. So that's 3 incumbents running for the seat. And in addition, a quick look earlier at the Maryland Election Board website showed 3 other candidates as well. So it's going to be one of whom is a Republican, all the rest are Democrat. So it'll be a lively race at the county executive level. Meanwhile, at the county council level, you've got at least 3 candidates running for the first district seat that Andrew Friedson is vacating to run for county executive. And they include, because we know a few of these folks, they've presented to the board and the village in the past, Julie Yang, who just finished a term as the school board president. She's still on the school board. In addition to Drew Morrison, who's with the Maryland Department of Transportation, and Debbie Spielberg, who is actually Mark Elrich's current chief of staff. And so she's been in that role for some time. So that's the folks that are on the Maryland Election Board website currently. I think we'll see others jumping into the first district as well. And then when you look at the at-large, so of the 4 at-large seats, Mark Elrich, county executive, is running for one of those, probably favored. And then secondly, Laurie Ann Sales, current incumbent, running for re-election. So there's 2, so, all 4 of those seats are up for grabs. 2 well-known or incumbents running for those 4 seats. There are 13 other people currently who have filed to run for those at-large seats, according to the election board website. Okay, so those aren't all the things that we would be looking to tackle in a candidate forum. We would probably keep it pretty focused, especially on the first district race, with some possibility of, do we entertain a county executive candidate forum? I was approached in the course of handling some of the zoning issues over the last year. I've been approached by a couple of the candidates themselves and other residents, both of the village and neighboring municipalities, to ask if the village would be interested in co-sponsoring a candidates forum. And we have done that in the past. In 2010, there was a group of municipalities, including the village, that sponsored candidate forums leading up to the primary. Again in 2014, again in 2018. I don't know, there was a miss in 2018, unless, Shana, do you think we did something in 2018, or did it just get kind of
No, I don't think
by the
that there was
wayside?
an active group down here in the Chevy Chase area that participated in the 2018 forum race. Yeah.
So with that,
What does co-sponsor mean?
co-sponsor means that we would be listed as a co-sponsor with the other municipalities, And presumably we would, so we'd be on the notices that would go out. If there were any expenses, which we would expect to be minimal, the village would have a pro rata share of the expenses. I think in 2018 or 2014 rather, they were $100.
Correct.
So
we're not proposing
Yeah.
to host or are we?
yeah, so co-sponsoring here is not a financial thing. It's entirely participating and lending our name to the organizing effort to bring the said group of candidates together at a local venue. The Lawler Center has been used in the past, and we could look at others as well. But just to bring them together, probably the different municipalities and people involved in organizing, they might participate in asking questions of the candidates. That would be the extent of it.
Okay, so we're not saying that we're going to have one of those here, but it's possible that we would.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, this is probably too small a venue for the number of, in the past, it's been as many as 11 municipalities and civic organizations. So it's in the very formative stages right now of just folks saying, get a sense of your board or your town councils, depending, as to whether there's support for holding these things. I think between the January and February meetings of various boards and councils, there will probably be a pretty strong sense that, yes, let's do this. There will probably be some community organizations that would also join in.
Why the heck not? Is my view.
Yeah, yeah. And then, we want to manage this so that it doesn't really cost us anything. I mean, $100 obviously de minimis in the scheme of what we're proposing to do, but and we want to make sure that it doesn't become controversial for any reason. So there need to be clear criteria for what candidates are allowed to participate, so that if anyone, if now and then you get candidates who just file every 4 years and they don't really campaign, but if they want to get on the stage and have a platform for whatever their views are, that we wouldn't necessarily want to just see that for people who aren't serious candidates. But assuming it's all managed correctly, this should be very uncontroversial. And I think at the first sign of controversy, we might pull in our horns. So I think the question tonight is just a sense of the board. Are folks supportive of us participating in this? And then we'll provide updates as an organizing effort gathers steam.
Lou, I will say that, MMC Channel 16 would be covering a forum like that. So that would give it accessibility to other members in the village that don't go. I mean, they could watch
Yeah,
it.
that'd be great. No, thank you for that. That's a great point.
If I could just highlight another benefit of our being a co-sponsor is that we also help to ensure that any questions that are posed to the candidates are, meeting our community's needs. And so not being at the table as a co-sponsor, you don't get to weigh in on those proposed questions. This gives us the benefit of ensuring that specific questions that we have in mind that would be critically important to our residents get posed.
I'm trying to think of a reason to oppose this, and I can't think of one.
Okay. Yeah.
Nor can I.
Primary or after?
This would be before the primary, so it'd be in the run-up. And the historic precedent is for a June primary in 2014, the candidates forum was held in late March. That's pretty early, late March for a late June primary. In 2010, it was held in late April. And I think the committee that comes together would eventually want to decide on the primary. There's a number of variables, not just the number of county seats that are going to be shuffled in this election that'll be of interest to folks. But while the zoning issues at the county level are not running hot and heavy this year as they were a year ago with affordable housing strategies and so forth, they are heating up at the state level. And so there's a bill that's just been, the draft has become available in the last 24 hours that at a first reading, it threatens to upzone most of the state of Maryland, that a single family home could now be eligible to accommodate a 3 dwelling unit townhomes. So it's an incredibly expansive bill that may never make it out of committee because it is so drastic. But I think that these zoning issues and how best to address the housing shortage, clearly it'll be on the agenda in the legislature over the next few months. And probably it'll be of interest at the county level. However it plays out in the legislature will then have an impact on how the county races shape up. So that might argue for having the forum shortly after the legislature is done.
Right. In April.
Yeah.
One comment, I think we need to be careful not to co-sponsor if it's a Democratic only.
Right.
We need to make sure they're members of all parties, just so, because that's the only potential controversy I can see, so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
But do you have enough of a sense of the board at this point?
I think you have this. Thank you all for that. And with that, remaining on the agenda, Chief Neske, police report.
I know how technology works. Evening, everyone. So December, we had one theft of packages in the 5900 block of Connecticut Avenue on the 11th. We had two theft from autos, one in the 100 block of Grafton on the 16th. Over the evening, removed an item from an unlocked vehicle. We had another one on the unit block of Newlands on the 21st. Entered the vehicle, took items. Victim states the vehicle was locked, but there was no visible damage to the vehicle. So unknown entry. Auto thefts, we had one in the 100 block of Summerfield Road between the 1st and the 2nd. Stole the vehicle by unknown means. Not quite sure how they got in. Victim stated that the vehicle locks automatically. Then on the strange one on the 30th, we had a auto theft in the unit block of Grafton, where two suspects pulled up in a dark Jeep Wrangler. One suspect enters, gets out of the vehicle, goes around to the passenger back door, gets into the vehicle, unknown means, crawls to the front, figures out they can't drive it for some reason, hops out. The Jeep comes back and they switch places and both vehicles drive away. What made this especially odd was it's the second vehicle stolen from this particular resident in the last couple months. So we're not sure if they were marked somehow or what, but we're trying to work with Montgomery County's auto theft to see if they have anything on it as well.
Wasn't there a picture that went around online?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I saw.
Not a very good one, but we try to
No,
get out
yeah,
what we
yeah.
have. That's where you kind of see the dark
The
blurry
ring camera,
vehicle
yeah.
and the even blurrier suspect get out and get into the vehicle. Administratively, we still have one opening. We continue to see applicants. It's a midnight shift. Sometimes it's a little harder to get folks to commit to, but we are continuing to look. Our senior self-defense classes began last week. Judging from the people that were in attendance and people I talked to, it's going pretty well, and they're excited. Unless they were lying to me, they said they had enjoyed the class. We're looking forward to continuing it. Our women's self-defense class begins on the 25th. We're still taking registrations for that. We had a great Toys for Tots drive. We had a completely full SUV of toys that we delivered to the organization. So thank you for everyone who donated. We also have some new emergency management materials out here out in front of the lobby, thanks to the Public Safety Committee and Ollie Davidson. So I encourage residents to come and take advantage of those. I guess I'll save the year-end stats for the annual meeting. Not that you don't see them in front of you, but I'll elaborate on them later. And that's it for me, unless anybody has questions or concerns. Oh yeah, Polar Plunge, thank you. Once again, the village has a Polar Plunge team for the Chevy Chase Village Police Department. We are, I think, 3 or 4 brave souls at the moment.
I don't know why he looks at me. When he says that.
1 year. I swear it's going to happen. I have confidence. So we look forward to going into the water.
What's the date?
That's the 30th.
Okay.
My super plunge is next week, next Friday. That's 24 times in 24 hours. If you're completely bored Tuesday, need something good to eat and want to drive to Eldersburg, my last gig, fundraising gig is at the 1623 Brewery. I will say they have outstanding food. So if you feel like taking a drive, I'll be there 6 to 8.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Neat stuff. Aside from the crime report. Yeah. And Shayna with the manager's report.
Well, I'm happy to report Jennifer and I will be here holding down the office on January 30th while our coworkers go and do the polar plunge. We feel that it's the least we can do to support the effort. Just a couple highlights from my report. As noted by Mr. Crockett at your February meeting, we hope to be making a presentation of the draft audited financial statements, as well as a report from our Friendship Heights Sector Plan Committee on the results of the community survey that was concluded this past Friday that had a very, very high response. And the committee is looking forward to presenting the results of that survey to the board at your meeting on February 9th. Also just wanted to note that the sidewalk maintenance work that the board authorized in December has commenced, and our contractor, Capital Hardscapes, has completed various repairs along East Lenox and Newland Streets. They have begun work on Oxford Street, and then we'll move over to Primrose Street to complete that block before the end of the month. We've also been working with Chevy Chase Club to address some parking concerns related to some of our residents on the east side of the village. We've seen an increase in Chevy Chase Club employee parking on village streets. And so we're working with them to try to manage those parking pressures on those roadways, and we're getting a lot of really good support from their general manager to get those issues resolved. On personnel matters, just wanted to make the board aware that the Public Works Department, we actually have 2 employees who are currently out who had stalled, needed surgeries, unrelated, but each needed surgeries for various different things. They were kind enough to us to put those off until after leaf collection season. And so both of them had successful surgeries last week. It's Clarence Ricks. Many of our East Side residents are familiar with Clarence. He is our principal yard waste collection person for the east side of the village, and so has come to know many of our East Side residents very well. And then Eli Balbuena Suarez, of course, our newest employee, who suffered an unfortunate shoulder injury off duty, was able to return to work, but was able to have that repairing surgery just last week. So they're both doing well. We have sent flowers to both of them on behalf of the board and the staff, wishing them a speedy recovery. I have nothing else to report unless there are any questions.
Thanks. Questions, anyone? Or a motion?
Well, not wanting to be here later than I was up on New Year's Eve, I move to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you,
Adjourned.
everyone.